I probably need to mute that though.
Oh yeah, good idea. Hello friends, just give us a second here to get all situated because we're doing some crazy stuff here. It always takes us a minute. Lori's going to be joining me on Instagram as well as on Facebook. I mean, we think we can pull this off. We think. Maybe. We'll see. I mean, it's worth a shot, I think. Right, Lori? It's worth a shot. I wish that... Oh, I know what I can do. I was like, I want to see if it's working.
If you're talking to me, I can't hear you.
Oh. In StreamYard here? Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
I know why I can't hear you.
Why?
I have my computer on mute.
Well, there you go. Problem solved. Oh, Michelle Sanders can hear me. That's good. So wait, something's working. That's important to know. Yeah, we're figuring it out here. We're figuring it out. Okay. I'm adding you on Instagram. And are we live on Facebook?
Okay, see now, but now I have an echo.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the deal. I'm no expert at this, and so it's taking me a few minutes to catch up.
Me too.
And we're just gonna put the whole thing in action, right? Like we don't have to be experts to do the thing. Isn't that what we're gonna chat about today?
That's true. That's true.
Okay.
So we're becoming experts, right? As we go here.
It's the only way.
It is the only way. So I'm trying to... Okay. You're funny.
Also, I look way better on my phone on Insta. So if you want a better view of Lori, go to Insta instead of
You
Facebook.
look beautiful either way. You look... I don't understand why I can't hear you. Oh, I turned you all the way down. Wonder... Okay. Okay. We ready?
I'm ready.
I think... I don't know. Okay.
Hi, Jennifer. Jennifer on Insta.
Hi.
Just joined
Jennifer
us.
on Insta. Jennifer on Insta's here. Hi, friend. Okay. I think it's working in both places. I don't know. We're going to just go and just kind of see what happens.
Let's roll with it.
Let's roll with it. So I think it's working on Facebook too. Go ahead and hi, friend. Go ahead and if you're on Facebook, make sure you give permissions to StreamYard so we can see your fabulous name so that we can know who is here and who is leaving a comment. Thanks for your patience as we get all of this situated. If you haven't gathered, we're trying to do Facebook Live and Instagram Live at the same time, and I think we're doing it. I think it's happening. It's working. So, without further ado.
Oh, Michelle. I know Michelle.
Yay!
Dear. Okay, Michelle, I hope you're still hanging out with us.
And Cassie's here too.
Hi, Cassie. Okay.
Fantastic. So, I wanted, in case people don't know who you are, can you just say a little bit about where you are in the world and what you do and all of those kinds of fabulous things?
So my name is Lori Young. I am a speaker and a writer, and I'm a coach. I'm a certified Enneagram coach. And I didn't know that I would love doing that so much. I like the Enneagram. I've always like had great success understanding myself through the Enneagram, but I never really thought that I would be an Enneagram coach. If you're not familiar with the Enneagram, it is a compound word. It means Ennea is 9 and gram is just drawing. And there's 9 different types, personality types. And basically, they're just 9 different ways, but valid ways to see and perceive the world. And it's a tool for growth and understanding yourself better. So that is what I do. And I take great delight in watching people understand themselves better and light up with all the things. It's pretty cool. So,
I love it.
yeah,
I love
that's
it.
what I do.
I love the Enneagram, as you know.
Well, you and I, Bethany, are the same type. We are a type 9. We are
Yes.
all about creating peace and harmony in our environments.
Yes. And
Mm-hmm.
part of that is within ourselves, right? And that's really
Mm-hmm.
what this is all about tonight, actually,
Yes,
which makes perfect sense if you look at it that way.
right.
So, yeah, we are here to talk about this idea of being an expert, which is also called imposter syndrome. There's a lot of ways you can look at it. And we just thought, hey, let's talk about this because I don't know about you, Lori, but it's probably something that I deal with on like a daily basis. You know, every 24 hours, probably I'm dealing with some sort of imposter syndrome and I'm not an expert at this, or this. Who do I think I am? Those kinds of things. What about you?
A to the men is what I say. And here's the thing, one day I'll be great in one area of my life, my ministry. I'm like, boom, I got this. And then, but I'll be like down, like imposter syndrome in another, like being a mom or, I'm dating. And so there's this huge imposter syndrome about like, well, I don't think I really am who he thinks I am. But it's something different every day, but it is pretty constant all the time. Mm-hmm.
It is. It is. And I mean, I guess we probably all maybe respond a little bit differently when imposter syndrome kind of like tries to take us down. But for me, I can lose like days. I can lose, just depending on, the lies that I'm believing, depending on the area where I'm really feeling vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
I can kind of like lose ground and it might take me days to recover. Is that your experience?
Well, yeah, but and I also think that that's like a typical, like classic type 9 response that we kind of tend to like go into our cave and we tend to
Yeah,
like kind of numb out a little bit, right? And we just ignore
for
because
sure.
it kind of jacks with our spaces. So everyone reacts differently, although it's a real thing.
Yeah,
I would think for everybody, right?
yeah, yeah. It can really just derail, what I have planned or what I think I'm going to be doing, and
Mhm.
I just, you know, end up eating chocolate and
My
and
go-to
like,
is a chili cheese dog.
oh, see, that sounds good with some salt and vinegar chips or some French fries, maybe.
Get out. That sounds amazing.
That sounds really good. Like
Uh-huh.
that sounds really, really yummy. Um, so when we encounter imposter syndrome, I guess I just give into it. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's usually how I deal with it. I'm just like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'm not what I thought it was. Maybe I'm not supposed to be doing this, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe that voice inside my head is right. Like maybe I shouldn't be, for example, putting a book together. Who do I think I am? Just for example. Um, So yeah, I feel like that imposter syndrome can really like, if I don't know how to deal with it, if I don't know what to do with it, it can really just like knock me out. So we kind of want to talk about, share some different ideas on how to deal with imposter syndrome. Like when it comes, because it's going to show up. It's going to show up. It's going to
100%.
come knocking.
100%. You
100%.
might as well just expect it, right?
Yeah.
And when we were talking about this earlier, you brought up a good point about I don't think anyone is immune from imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I have friends who are doctors who experience this. I have friends who are lawyers. I have friends who do like kick butt and take names in the corporate world. And I know that they experience the same thing. One of
Yeah.
our friends just signed a book contract, and even she said she doesn't feel like an expert. Even she struggles with imposter syndrome. And
Yeah.
so I ask myself, like, well, what do we do with that?
Right.
If
Right.
the people with the most like expertise still feel that way, then maybe I should stop being so hard on myself and embrace it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Like maybe there's a better way to deal with it than what I typically do. And so we talked about like some different ways to do that. Um,
Yeah.
and it's not always just like feeling, oh, okay, I just got to do whatever I can do to become an expert. That's not always the answer.
Well,
Sometimes.
it feels like it. Like if I were just a little bit more of an expert, then I wouldn't be suffering from imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I just, right? Oh, those are the words of death right now. If I just
Seriously.
then you never feel good enough because you can't ever get to the expert level that like somebody
Right.
else a little ahead of you is. And
Right.
so it knocks us back down into this vicious cycle. Like
Yep.
we climb a little bit into expertise and then we knock ourselves down into imposter syndrome again.
And we talked about how maybe one of the things that we needed to do was maybe um, redefine what an expert is.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I
so no, you had a great thought on this today, so I want you to share.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, I think, well, and I think maybe back up a second because we talked about what to do when we come against imposter syndrome. And one of those things is to talk to friends. Um,
Yes.
one of those things is to talk to our friends. One of those things is to, hey, this is what I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I'm struggling, maybe believing something that's not true about me. Can you help me kind of unwind this, unravel this, help me lean into what is true?
You know why that's so important for me is nobody else can see inside my head. And so they have a different perspective. They have an outside perspective and
Mm-hmm.
they can see where I started in this ministry and how far I've come. And so it never fails. I have people who say, but look at all the things that you've done. When
Yeah.
you started, you didn't have a website, and
Mm-hmm.
now you do. And even though you still have more steps to go, you're becoming an expert in building websites,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
you're becoming an expert in your field of authenticity, or you, Bethany, like this is what you've been focusing on is permission granted.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes we become more adept, better, stronger. We become, more in line with who we were created to be just by doing the thing, just by
Yeah.
doing it. Actually, I took a walk today with my son, and it was so funny, Lori, because we had just kind of talked and kind of gone over what we wanted to share here, perhaps, and then my son was like, when I go to karate and I see new people come in and I realize, oh, I've learned a lot. Like I can help them. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's what we're talking about tonight. It's so good that you see that and that you realize like, okay, I can actually help teach them. But also, that was me. Like, not that long ago, I didn't know all of the stuff that I know now. And I was like my brain was just like exploding because I'm like, oh my stars, yes, this is so true. So we can ask our friends, and we can also just take a step back and say, that's where I was, and
Mm-hmm.
this is where I am now. Because,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we just get lost in where we are, or maybe even what we've accomplished. So sometimes it's good to be able to just, take a moment and say, oh, okay, yeah, this is true about me. Like, I have learned a lot of things. I have built a website. I have written, a body of work that I can pull some things together and make a book out of it. So I was just like, I cannot believe that he's like, maybe we could do a Facebook Live. And I was like, yes,
That's awesome.
yes,
That's
we can,
awesome.
buddy. So another thing we talked about was when we are feeling this imposter syndrome, that sometimes we have to lean into that, and maybe it's the right opportunity for some training, for some more training.
That's such a good point, because I really did want to do some kind of coaching. And so I had kind of started this like layout for, to do coaching for authenticity over approval.
Mm-hmm.
And I could dig in and do the work. I really could. I could create a coaching program beginning to end. But the truth is, I I haven't gone through coaching like that before.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that there was a certification program that did all of that for me, but also trained me really, really well. And
That's so
so
awesome.
I just leaned into that, and I went ahead and invested in it. And I know that there was a part of me that felt like I needed to validate my expertise,
Yeah.
but it has given me organic confidence
Mm-hmm.
to sit down with my clients and know that they're really getting something of value.
Yeah.
And so I would say, if there's an area that you want to learn more, become an expert in, find a way to invest in it.
Yeah.
Find a way to invest in a certification, or invest in more training, or go to attend a conference. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with gathering information, as long as you don't get stuck in imposter, and as long as you sit down and do the work,
Yeah.
right? Like, I could overconference myself by learning and learning and learning, and never
Right.
actually, like, well, I'm learning, but I'm not doing. Well, it's because I'm not doing. I got to
Right.
get my hiney in the chair and
Right.
move forward. So,
Yeah. And I think that sometimes um, I hesitate when it comes to training or learning, because it pushes in on a vulnerability spot.
ooh,
Yeah,
what's
because
the
it's
vulnerability spot?
yeah, because it's something that I should already know, or if I'm pursuing this, then it's something I should already be good at, or if it's something I should already, have in my back pocket. And so taking a training, or doing some sort of conference or something like that, or even just saying, identifying somebody that knows what they're doing and saying, hey, like, can you teach this to me? Can you help me with this? And sometimes I shy away from those things because of like how I view myself, or because I'm battling imposter syndrome, or
Mm-hmm.
simply because of how I define expert. So we kind of talked about, maybe we have the wrong definition for expert.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we're wrong. And, an expert is somebody that knows their field inside and out, and, is the go-to person kind of thing.
Well, and I also think of expert too as somebody who's arrived. They've made it.
Ooh, yeah.
They're at the final destination. But when we were talking about doctors feeling that imposter syndrome, I think about ER, which I went back and watched recently, and so I know how to do a CBC and a Chem 7 and intubate if I needed to.
So you're the person to call.
A, that doesn't make me an expert, but B, there were plenty of episodes where the doctors felt out of their depth, right? A case would
Mm,
come in, it was mysterious to them. They didn't quite know how to solve this health problem. And so, you would think that they were the expert, but the truth is, there's no end point. There's always, always, always something for us to learn
yeah,
and grow in, some area that we're going to we can't know all the things.
we can't. We
I
can't.
mean, I want to, but we can't be the knowers of all the things.
Right. We're not meant to, right? We're not meant to. And that's how
No.
we redefined expert. We redefined experts as someone who's in pursuit of what they were created for. So
Amen.
when you're in pursuit, there's no, like you're saying, there's no arrival. It's just a constant walk, a constant movement towards who we are created to be. And that's going to be different for every person. So there's no way that I can know how to run a CBC and bake a wedding cake and paint the walls and repair the electricity and write a book. There's no way I can know all of those things. I'm not meant to. I'm not created to. And guess what? When that's true, I don't have to feel like I haven't arrived. Like I don't have to feel this like, ooh, I gotta hide this part of me because I don't know what I'm doing here. Like it's okay because I'm in pursuit of what I'm created to be, and that's what
And
matters.
isn't that the beautiful part of this whole thing is that it's a journey and it's
Mhm.
hecka fun, right?
Yes.
It's it's so much fun to learn and like discover something new about authenticity or
Yeah.
about like how we're made, or for you like discover something new about what it means to take up your space
Yes.
and to like give people permission to like be, you know and create and do all of those things.
Yeah.
Like this is I I think God created it to be an entire journey where we get to have fun, where there's hills and valleys and trees and
Mm,
flowers and all the things, right?
yes.
It's exciting to not
Yes.
be at a point of arrival.
That's so true. And then, I don't feel like I'm behind when that's the
Oh,
case. Like
right.
I don't feel like, oh my gosh, I should have been at this place 5 years ago and I'm
Hmm.
just now here. Like this is awful. Like what am I doing? What am I doing? Um yeah, I really there's so much freedom in that. And oh shoot, my train of thought, it's kind of it's left me, and so I'm trying to here it came. It's back. Um I was telling somebody about writing a book that I feel like I'm in way over my head and I'm having the time of my life at the same time. Now, if you had asked me a few years ago if that was possible, I would have said no. I thought those were like mutually exclusive. I didn't know that they could happen simultaneously. And I think that's what this is. That's where imposter syndrome doesn't want us to believe that's true. Like,
Right.
we're supposed to believe the lies. We're supposed to hide. We're supposed to try to fight our own selves instead of just pursuing what we're created for. But I think it's possible, and it's maybe, I'm just discovering this. What am I, 42? 42? That's the case, that it's possible to be having the time of your life and way over your head, at the same time. Um, and I feel safe here, which that's kind of surprising too.
That's such an interesting observation because I feel safe here too.
Hmm.
Once I kind of accept that imposter syndrome is part of the deal,
Yeah.
that people in our field, communicators, writers, speakers, coaches, who've been in the field for 20, 30 years, they feel it too. They
Yeah.
experience the same exact thing. It just normalizes it, and it
Yeah.
makes the journey that much more fun, and it encourages me to just keep doing the things, you know
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
keep like keep the plane in the air, even if I'm building the wing as we go.
That's right. We just got to keep showing up. We just got to keep
Yeah.
taking up our space, being who we are right where we are, and not worrying about, trying to check off some kind of hierarchy, like checking off some sort of a level, which comes to mind here that what does this do for competition?
I'm not a very competitive person, but to me, it squashes it. I
Yeah.
mean, to me, well, you
Well,
could look at it both ways. You could be the kind of person that you have to be a little farther ahead than the other
mhm,
person. And so, to you, maybe being an expert is like getting a little farther ahead than the other
mhm,
person who's talking about something similar or doing something similar, right?
yeah.
There are very competitive people. It's natural, it's kind of in their bones. But I choose to look at it like we each get our entire pie. We don't get,
Yeah.
there is not one pie and we all
Right.
have to share. Lori Young gets her own whole pie. Bethany gets her whole pie. And
Yes.
so I just need to embrace the entirety of the pie,
Yeah.
like become an expert at the bottom part of the crust and the filling and
Yep.
the topping and all of that. Like, and you get to do the same thing. So when I look at it that way, it kind of eliminates the need for jealousy or she's further ahead or she's more of an
Right.
expert than me. That's not the spirit of what we're doing here on earth. We are here
Yeah.
to run our own race, um, to live out our own purpose, to go on our own journey of growth and exploration and expertise.
Yeah. And I feel like, there's freedom in this space. And so the competition thing, like you're saying, like it's not a thing anymore because everybody's just
Mm-hmm.
doing what they were created for. And so there's no like hierarchy any longer. And that is so like I don't even it's just so freeing to me. Like it
Yeah.
allows me to just be me and to pursue the things that God has put before me. And it helps me as someone who struggles with making decisions. It also helps me like, oh, nope, that's not for me. That's not for me to pursue.
I think too that, each kind of going back to the Enneagram, like each number on the Enneagram would look at it a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, imposter syndrome is looking across the aisle and seeing who's farther ahead than them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so maybe like a different way to reframe it is when you feel imposter syndrome, it's not about who's farther ahead. It
Mm-hmm.
really is. Maybe it's just as a little nudge, like learn a little bit
Yeah.
more,
Yeah.
explore that a little bit more, grow in whatever area you're feeling insecure in.
I like that.
Allow it to like push you,
Mm.
um, build you instead of bury you.
Yeah. So we have an opportunity to respond to imposter syndrome, um, and to look at it more as like a friendly nudge instead of a
Yeah.
reason to like go bury my head and stay in bed for a few days. Like I like
And
that. Like it can be like, hey, it can be kind of like a little like flag, like, oh, what is that? And what does
mm-hmm,
that mean for me? Is there some way that I'm supposed to respond to that?
mm-hmm,
It can be like you're saying, it can be a little nudge
mm-hmm,
to help me take the next step.
mm-hmm,
And instead of like heaping like shame and lies on top of myself, I can use imposter syndrome to kind of build the next place that I'm supposed to be. Like
mm-hmm.
it can be building blocks instead of like burying myself. And gosh, I never looked at it that way before. That's kind
Yeah,
of crazy.
I think that's such a cool thing. And sometimes you need to take a brick and just throw it at imposter syndrome and say, no, this isn't real. This isn't a real
Yeah.
thing. You know,
Yeah.
you're like, this is a function of fear. And
Mm.
we all know that that's not coming from a holy place. So,
Right. Right.
it's time for you to go now. Imposter syndrome, right?
Be gone.
Yeah, be gone. Especially when you gather enough evidence that you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And there's, like there's checks and balances for that, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we need to get quiet and we need to be still and we need to listen to, where God is leading us and to what he's saying over our lives. And sometimes he does use friends to speak over us. And sometimes he might, like, I can remember, Lori, when I was really struggling as a young mom with, three little ones, all about the age of 3 and 4 or something like that. And everything, it was just kind of like really, really hard. And I heard um I heard this radio show, and it led me to the She Speaks conference.
Mm.
And I realized, I'm like, oh, okay, like maybe this writing thing, like maybe there's something in this for me. Like maybe this is something that I'm supposed to be doing here. And then the very next weekend after She Speaks was the MOPS International Conference. And
Mm.
I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do both of these things. And my husband was like, yes, you can. And so I was like gone like 2 weekends in a row, but he recognized, like, no, she needs to do this. She needs to do this. So it's like all of these opportunities at once, but I felt like, oh my goodness, I'm supposed to do both of these things. Like both of these things are supposed to happen. And, we were able to swing it. And I mean, I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't, embraced those opportunities that were placed before me, because it was a very direct, like, point A, point B, like, oh, okay, I'm seeing this. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And it was scary. Yes. And the whole time I was at She Speaks, I felt like I was pretending the entire time. Like, I'm here, but don't really look at me. Like, don't really see me. And so here we are today. And a year ago, it's almost a year ago in November, I was speaking at a conference for the first time ever. So, that's one of those things. I guess I've grown. I guess I've changed. Maybe I'm leading into where I'm supposed to be. Maybe, just maybe.
Yeah, and I think that everyone has like an experience like that where they kind of took a leap of faith,
Mm.
and went to a conference or learned how to do something new toward their dream or their goal or their passion or their purpose, and it was a game changer for them.
Yeah.
That's how I felt about going to my first leverage conference with Kathy Lipp. It was a game changer, and I
Yeah.
remember thinking, like, how did I get here? I wrote a whole thing about it. I wrote a whole talk that I went later and gave to a bunch of MOPS groups. How did I get
Well,
here?
yeah.
And that was a little over 3 years ago. And here I am, like owning my own ministry, speaking, coaching, and I just had to overcome that.
Mm.
Who do I think I am? And I believe me, I've had this moment so many times in the
Yeah.
last year and a half as a ministry
Yeah.
owner. Who
Right.
do I think I am? But, I either embraced it, I squashed it with a good word from my friends,
Mm-hmm.
or I just fought through it and found the next level of what I needed to learn next.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing how just kind of, trusting the path that God has us on, and trusting that we are where we're supposed to be. And something that just came to mind is that when we choose to follow like the path of I am an imposter and who am I, that leads to decay. That leads to death. Like there's nothing we can't seek roots into that. There's nothing good for us there. However, when we choose to become an expert in that we are in pursuit of what we were created for, there's life there. And not only for us, but for the people that are within our circle of influence.
And the people that we're called to serve.
Yeah.
Right? Because,
exactly.
really, when we want to serve people, we just need to have a couple steps ahead to help them get their couple steps ahead.
Right.
And, it's not a hierarchy thing. There are people who are a couple steps ahead of me who've learned just a little bit more, who've helped clear the path for me to get to where I need to go. And that's kind of what I think we're meant to do here is help each other along the path. Yeah. And so, like sometimes we got to lay down our pride that we got to know it all before we can serve them all.
Ooh, yeah. That's good. That's good.
Ow.
I mean, I like the idea that, I feel better. Like, I feel more connected to myself, to my family, to my friends, to my work, when I'm pursuing things that are kind of over my head. Like, really, I'm actually feeling, I feel better there. I'm stretching, I'm growing, I'm learning, all of those things. Like, there's something to be said, right, for your sweet spot and staying there and kind of camping out there for a minute. That's fine. But it's also good to feel like, okay, I'm growing here in this space that I'm at.
Yeah, it's true. It really is a beautiful place to be. I like hanging out in my sweet spot. I do, because that's where I feel the most confident. But really, like this season of my life, since I've really started coaching, I've had to learn how to do the things. I've had to learn how to put a contract together and pop it up on Jotform. And I waited to do that until I had my first paid client. And I was kind of under the gun. And
I love it.
And I was like, oh yeah, I just do this and send you the link and da da da. And she's like, okay, do that. I'm like, okay, that doesn't exist yet. Okay. We're going to get to work and figure that out. So
it will very soon. It will exist very soon.
But it's so exciting to be in that place where, God kind of just keeps nudging me forward. And it really does make me forget about the imposter syndrome. And I get to just work. I get to do the things that I love to do just as an act, of worship. It's lovely.
Yeah, that's true. I really like that it's worship. It is. It's like I said, it's a way that we bring life into the world, just because we're doing what we're created to do, just because we're stepping in and taking up our space. There was something here that I was just going to say. I like to like sometimes I think that we talk ourselves out of something because of guilt, in that we're already busy, we're moms, we're doing this and we have to do this and we shouldn't be doing that. But I think that we have to remember that we have permission to invest in ourselves, and sometimes that's time, that's money, that's a trip to a conference, whatever that might look like. I think sometimes we can talk ourselves out of those things.
Amen. And we're worth, like, we have the value to invest in ourselves, and our kids get to see us invest in ourselves. Yes. And then they get to see how important that is, how important that education is. And for our kids who are homeschooling, and it's hard and it's a grind, and maybe they get to see the perspective that when I go to a conference or I'm in an online class, that it really does add value. Yeah. Even though maybe chemistry doesn't feel like it adds value, but they get to see us do that.
Right.
and get to see the growth that we're making. I mean, I'm just spitballing here, but I gotta find some kind
Yep.
of shiny sun in this
Yeah.
dark, dark tunnel.
Yes. Yes.
Or it's the train. I don't know, but it gets bleak in here.
Oh, yeah. Online stuff is very much a challenge. Very much.
Yes.
And
Well,
I,
and I think that adds to our sense of who do we think we are,
yeah,
because it's hard to watch our kids struggle and we can't fix it.
yeah,
We can't fix the problem. We can't make the situation better. And there are days we can't even get them to, I mean, I don't know about you, but I can't,
yeah,
I can't do any more than what I can do. And so it just
yep,
adds to that. Who do I think I am to be owning a ministry when I'm having such a hard time,
yeah,
with my kiddo right now?
yeah. And I think that sometimes, you know, there's so many times that I've noticed that and felt that, like, when you see somebody, putting a book out, or there's a book launch happening and they're doing all these things, and you're like, wow, like, that's so amazing. They're doing all these things. And then maybe somehow you find out that they're in the hardest time of their life.
Right.
Like, sometimes I feel like, well, all of the things have to be running on all cylinders all at the same time in
Yeah,
order
but
to
you know
be
what?
like, go ahead.
Well, I think that's the tactic of imposter syndrome, is that we think it has to be hard. We think that if it's not
Oh,
hard, we're not doing it right. I read this
oh,
in John Acuff's book. He talks about this. Like, we think we have to find the hardest way to do it, or we're not doing it right. Or we have to like watch somebody else who's doing all the hard things, and we must not be doing it right,
it's so
because look
good.
at them doing all the things and they're also releasing books.
It's so
It
good.
doesn't work like that, and it doesn't
It
have to
doesn't.
work like that.
It doesn't. It doesn't. And there's so much freedom, not in only being who we're created to be and just kind of like letting what everybody else is doing, letting them do their things because they're doing what they're created to do, and that's not for
Mm-hmm.
me. But
Right.
also just like, putting, like, not letting imposter syndrome kind of call the shots. Like,
Right. You don't
imposter,
own me. You don't boss me.
you're not
Nobody
in
bosses
charge
me.
here.
You're
You're
not.
not in charge here, imposter syndrome. Um,
Right.
and I
Right.
feel
Like,
like there's so much freedom in that. And I have
that's such a
felt
good
like
way to put it. Mm-hmm.
exactly what you were saying, that the simple thing where I'm just like, when I'm putting, now for me, this book is a little bit different in that most of the content was already put together. Most of the content was already there. I'm going through and I'm doing some heavy editing and I'm pulling out different ones, and there's still a lot happening, but there has been several times, Lori, that I've said, I feel like I'm not working hard enough. I feel like this should be harder. Like, people like staying up all hours of the night and trying to like figure out. Now, there are other things I'm concerned about. All of the technical things that I haven't figured out yet. And, all of the lingo that I'm learning, like, an O covered binding and a perfect flat binding and all of these. What? I don't know what I'm talking about sometimes, but I have found people who do. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
have people beside me who can help fill in the gaps where
Yes.
I feel like
Yes.
maybe not as confident, right? And
Right.
that's like when I need help with something, because it goes back to the thing. Like, I don't know it all. I'm not supposed to know it all.
Right.
So it's perfectly acceptable. And the thing that we're actually supposed to do, because we do need each other, we're not supposed to do this alone. And so
Exactly.
when I have an Enneagram question, I call up you.
Mm-hmm.
When I have a publishing question, I might call Kathy Lip.
Uh-huh.
Like, there's people that I know in my life that I've surrounded myself with on purpose, who, when I have a question, I can say, hey, like, can you help me out with this? And most of the time they're going to say yes, this is a good place to be, Lori. This is a good place to be.
It is. And I think that, we've also made really smart decisions. We have to give ourselves credit for seeking those experts out, seeking people out who are farther ahead of us, like Kathy Lip and Sherry Gregory and Amy
Yep.
Carroll, and getting involved in their intern program and meeting other peers who are all doing the same thing. We're all trying to be speakers and writers and coaches, and we all want a ministry. And so that too squashes the imposter, because anytime I'm feeling insecure, I can send Kathy an email or get on the Vox and be like, I'm struggling today. And she's inevitably going to say, I know, friend, me too.
Yep.
I'm like, you what? Like, you're Kathy Lip. You're writing at the Red House. You're communicator, you're Clutter-Free Academy. You're all the things. You've written 25 books. She's probably going to watch this and be like, it was only ... books, but not much less.
No, I think that's about right.
So I just have to keep that in perspective, that I've also done smart things by pursuing people and putting people in my life. I could have let imposter syndrome say, who am I to hang out in those spaces and get to know those people? But the truth is, I just went in with a humble servant's heart and said, how can I serve you? I just want to serve you. I want to help. I want to learn. I want to grow. It hasn't cost me anything. It's been the best investment of time. And look, you and I got to be friends, and many of the people watching are because of that.
Most definitely. And I think that's also something to remember, Lori, because we surround we have control over who we surround ourselves with and the people that speak into our lives. And I think that's something to consider, that when somebody gives into imposter syndrome, they may not be the type of people that we want to constantly surround ourselves with, because that's where comparison will be bred. That's where struggle will be, so we all deal with imposter syndrome, but those people that kind of give into it, they're not going to help us on our journey, probably.
Right. Yeah. And if really if it's too challenging, for someone to overcome it, and they kind of give into that insecurity and fear, and we've done everything we can to encourage them and remind them, how valuable they really are. That's true, and it's okay. I've given into imposter syndrome a lot in my lifetime, and I've let it kind of take me down. But I think at a certain point, I got to a certain age and I just couldn't give into it anymore. My time is short. Our time is short, friends. We don't have time to rumble in that space for too long. We have to pull ourselves up. We have to embrace that this is just a fear. It's imaginary. And we got to get to work. We have things to do.
That's so good. Yes, we don't have time to play around with imposter syndrome. Like you're saying, be gone. We don't have time for this. Yes, be gone. Be gone.
Get on out of here.
Well,
I don't know what that was, but I'm no expert on accents, that's for sure.
I love it. I like to pretend that I am. And my kids are no. Stop.
I like to pretend I'm a good singer, that I'm an expert singer. And my kids are like, no.
Yeah.
Also, I'm probably not as funny as I think I am, but still.
Well, you're funny to me. We have a fun time.
We do.
Together and learning and growing and helping turn each other away from imposter syndrome and saying,
Amen.
No, that's not true. You know who you are and you know what you're called to.
Yep.
So I think that's a good place to wrap it up. And
love it.
Thanks everybody for joining tonight. And let me know if you're watching this on replay. We'd love to be able to chat with you. So yeah, don't give in to imposter syndrome. You might have to fight it off. You might have to call in a friend. You might have to pause and really reflect on where you were and where you are now. And you might have to redefine the word expert. And for us, for me, I define that as I am in pursuit of what God has created me for. So I hope that maybe this conversation just kind of allows you to dig in and understand that imposter syndrome can be something that nudges you in the right direction that you were created for. So thanks for joining us tonight. Have a great rest of your evening, friends.
Bye, everyone.